Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to the Paradise Podcast and welcome to the Secret to Great Anime Podcast. This episode, because I'm running on a really tight schedule, I'm deciding to put this episode on both podcasts. This is going to be in the Secret to Great Anime Podcast, and this is going to be on the People's Paradise Podcast. Today, I've been talking this shit for the longest time about how I was going to get you guys somebody interesting. I finally, after 47 rejection letters, finally did. As you know, I'm a big fan of anime. Always been a fan of anime since I was able to watch TV. The man I got on the line has a voice that you probably recognize if you're a fan of anime like myself. He was Gazeth Stronoff on Overlord. He was the most hated character on One Piece, which almost made me not want to interview him, Kizaru. He also was Kusmashi. He also was Basilisk on Ninja Slayer. And a few other animes that I don't want to talk about because simply the most of them I kind of was not into outside of One Piece, Overlord, and Ninja Slayer. Give a round of applause for my man, Ray Hurd. What's up, Ray?
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. That was really good. I appreciate it.
Man, I watched Soul Train a lot growing up.
Glad to be here.
So, boy, Ray, how's it been going for you today? First off, I'm going to be honest with all of you guys. I've been talking to him about maybe 2 hours before I got on to have the actual podcast interview. We went through philosophy, we went through race relations. Literally the last sentence we had, I think we were about to call Al Sharpton to see if he wanted to participate, but we figured got to get back to the interview.
Right. Got to get back to it. Yeah. I'm definitely glad to be a part of the program, the podcast, and get to know your listening audience a little bit and let them get to know me a little bit, because we had a lot of questions, a lot of things sent to me on my Facebook page and things like that. But yeah,
cool.
It's always nice to go through this outlet.
So Ray, for those who might not know you, tell them a little bit about yourself.
A lot of people think by my I don't know if I want to say accent, but by the way that I speak generally, that I'm from California, but I am not. I'm actually from Texas, and you being a Californian by birth, I believe, but definitely knows the difference. And
oh yeah.
So long at this point, you kind of brought the Southern out of me a little bit. I'm born and raised here in Texas. Have been a fan of cartoons and voices my entire life. Since the first time I had ever actually really paid attention to any type of wacky, zany character voices, and I've always been drawn to it. So it was something that became a regular thing. Of course, like most kids, I watch cartoons. We had a debate before to share with your audience about which
oh yeah
were the best, which decade or generation of cartoons were the best or not. Of course, I said the 80s because that's when I grew up, and like you said, it is. They still play that stuff to this day, on different channels, outlets, and things, and all of those characters, all of those voices and things just really stuck with me. I could always tell the difference when that same voiceover talent went to another cartoon and did another character and all of that. And I've just always been very drawn to acting and voice acting as a whole.
When we were debating about the cartoons, about whose was better, yours or mine, like 80s cartoons and 90s cartoons, it's funny that we're debating about that, because I'm going to tell you who I think is going to have the best cartoons, actually, is not this generation that's coming after me, but the generation right after that. Because right after them, what's going to happen is they're going to have virtual reality probably really well.
Heck, virtual reality came out when I was a kid, man.
I'm talking about, no. I'm talking about the real virtual reality. I'm talking about that borderline Matrix type shit.
Okay. Well, they jacked in by the back of their heads. I got you. Yeah. They jacked right into it's in their minds. Yes. Maybe so by that time. Hopefully, it'll be safe. That's for sure. I watched the 81-year-old man that was playing a video game with his grandson, and he had a VR gun up and starts hitting the zombies. And his family at that time were like, "No, that's not the way you play the game." So they're trying to stop him. He's walking around the room and nearly beating them up as well, and so they had to take the goggles off of him because it was crazy. But and so I'm hoping that they put him in a safe environment if that's exactly what happens during that generation. So that could be great.
That'd be cool. But anyway, I hope. Okay, but anyway, so how did you really get into voiceover? How did you really get into voiceover acting? Illuminati.
I went to radio school first. I mean, after attempting to get into the NFL, and
you want to be an NFL player?
Oh well, it was kind of like more or less that was just it seemed to be the only way to go at that point. I lived in the inner city, and a lot of kids. And that time, like I basically I grew up in the gang era, so it was either you joined the gang, you got involved with a sport, or you became some type of rapper, and that was pretty much the only way. But it was very, few people who were really, really aiming for college and things of that nature. Now, of course, I came from a family that was. I say of course, but I came from a family that was very, very well educated, very musically inclined, had their own music groups and stuff like that. So, I mean, I came from a very educated family. So, I had to go get my education somewhere. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to need to pay for it. And the best way I could do that would probably be with sports. In my case, I wanted to play basketball because the school I went to, which was Paul Lawrence Dunbar, we had the winningest basketball coach in the state, Coach Hughes, senior.
Mm-hmm.
And I took his health class and tried to get into the basketball program with him, but he was one of those coaches that didn't like you playing two sports and things like that and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So he was, and at the time I hadn't started football yet, but actually I had. And I was trying to cross over, but his team was already put together. And he really didn't, and I didn't know this at the time, but he really didn't have a vision of bringing anybody else on. And I was an unknown prospect, but I was tall. I was like 6'1" in the ninth grade.
Damn.
So they were looking to, he didn't look to bring me in, so he didn't. So the next option, everybody pushed me to play football because I was getting bigger and started to spread out. And so I did, and played it all the way through to my senior year. Ended up going to college. Afterwards, they redshirted me. I didn't like that too much, so came back home. Once that happened, I had to go to work and decide what I was going to do, and so I went to radio school. And while in radio school, everybody was like, "Oh, you've got the voice. You're going to go be a big radio DJ." And we talked a little about this in our previous conversation. And I was more or less not interested in radio because of the things that I heard about it. And radio wasn't the way it was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you were just jockey. You could go in and play whatever music you wanted. It's kind of like what Jack FM promotes. We play what we want. It's not, but it's not that way. By the time I got involved, you had programmers that would program what was going to be played, and that's it. And I didn't like the way the direction radio was going. So unless you're syndicated, you're really not making a lot of money doing radio anyway.
That's true.
And so you can take it as far as you want, in that business, but you just have to be one of those personalities, You got to really stand out, and so I just didn't want to. That's not the direction I was interested in. I always had more fun doing the commercials. When they asked us to in class, we would have commercial times where we had to do 60-second, 30-second commercials, things like that, and so that was where I really would shine. And they loved all my character voices and all that stuff, and that's when I started to realize, I think I'm going a different direction. So I finished radio school. To make a long story short, and after a certain amount of time. Texas. And I always followed Funimation because of Dragon Ball Z back when Saban Entertainment had them.
Yeah, TBZ.
And that's right. And of course, at that time, they had Masked Rider, they had the Power Rangers, all of that stuff. You know, when I was in my teenage years, and I'm looking at this stuff and thinking, oh, that's really cool. And I just remembered all of that, and I said, okay, well, let's see where they are. Well, Saban no longer existed, and Funimation had taken over. And of course, I heard about Funimation because of Dragon Ball Z, and so the way that it worked from there is once I found out they were here in Flower Mound, I found out when they would add what their process was for bringing in talent. And twice a year, at that time it was twice a year, where they had casting calls. And you could come in and possibly be cast for a potential character. And so I submitted myself, wrote them a letter via the internet, sent them an email, and sent them my radio demo that I made while in radio school. And because they asked for you to record yourself and send it in, and so I did. And that was it. No, it didn't work out that smoothly. After 3 months, I didn't hear anything from them. So I submitted myself a second time and didn't hear anything for another 3 months before they finally brought me in for a casting call. And I got the first character I was cast for, and that was Azuma of Fairy Tail. And they brought me right in. Which was not the character I was aiming for. I was actually aiming for a different character, but they said, you'd be perfect for this guy. And so
yeah, be perfect for the black guy. Be perfect for the black guy that looks nothing like you. Yeah, that's you.
Right.
Yes, they choose any.
Yeah, that's how that went.
They choose any generally any black character that they have. We got to find some black guy. We got to find some black guy over 6'4". That's him.
Right. And so, and I guess Azuma, they figured, well, yeah, you kind of, you fit him. You're a big guy. And he's the tallest character in the show, and he's got to come off. He's the most powerful character at that time, and so they really wanted somebody that could carry the weight of that. So they figured it was me, and that's how I got started.
Now, so when you do these characters, like how you just said how they looked at the character and they felt like that you would fit like fit the profile of the character. Is that generally how you get jobs most of the time? Is somebody have a character and you'll kind of like how you pitch yourself as you saying, you have this character, I can do a voice like this character, or my voice has a personality similar to this character. Is that how you pitch yourself, or is it simply just saying, or is it saying your character, I can understand his personality and I can try to mimic it versus me putting mine on it?
Well, with voice acting, it's different than live acting in the sense of with live acting you have to actually get a feel for the character and like fully. You have to fully figure out where the character is coming from, why they're saying the lines that they're saying. Whereas in anime, they tell you up front what the character, what kind of character this character has, for lack of a better term. They already have the story in place. So all your job is at that point is to facilitate a believable voice that fits the overall personality of the character. So, like in a Disney film, they tailor the character by the person that's playing them, so to speak. Like the character has their own attitude and way that they see things, but a lot of times, and nowadays it's different, with Pixar and Disney and things like that. But they do it a little different. But for a long time, the animal would look a lot like the person playing them, voice wise. So things like that would come about, and when you get into overall animation for television and things like that, it's generally you finding a voice within yourself to that is not only believable, but that relatable to the overall personality of the character. And I'll give you an example. When I did Azuma, I thought in terms of, when they explained his personality to me, he was a very stoic, hard, slightly barbaric in attitude character. I thought, well, the best way to approach it would be to give my best impersonation of the Kevin Conroy Batman, because who's more stoic than that character? And as he stands today, and so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put my best foot forward and give that impersonation. And so when I did that, they loved it, and that was how I got that part. Some characters, to give you another example, Pinky and the Brain, for those who remember the Animaniacs. The guy that, and you can see this on YouTube, by the way, but I forget the man's name particularly, but a very, very famous voice actor who did the voice of the Brain. He basically he came in knowing he was going to get the part over the other person they had picked. They had like 3 other guys that they were considering other than himself, and he came in and gave his best Orson Welles impersonation. And that was how he got the job.
Really?
Because most characters you see are built up of people that we already know, people that already exist. So each of the if you think in those same terms, then generally you can find yourself doing a really good job at getting work, for an animation or for a character.
So when you're doing a character, I guess the main question I really want to ask, honestly, is what was the most interesting experience you had with doing a voice of a character, or what character gave you the most interesting experience in being that character? It might have been a hard experience, it might have been an easy experience, but what gave you the most interesting experience?
The most interesting experience. Well, I'm trying to think of just one particular character. Most of the characters that I was given in the beginning were pretty. They were pretty stoic characters, so there wasn't a lot of range. I think the Basilisk character in the Ninja Slayer was pretty interesting, because the way I had to speak for him, and then the type of it was my voice roughly, because they don't ask me to deviate very much from my voice, but the overall way that I had to approach it was different. Even the screams and stuff was different. And I always like a bit of a challenge anyway, when it comes down to the way the character has to come across. But they generally don't ask me to change my voice very much. They usually want me to use my natural speaking voice. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I got to do this, and I got to do that. I got to change it up. I got to do all these different things. So, but I guess to answer your question, Basilisk is the one that comes to mind when it comes down to one of the more interesting voices that I've done. Except for when I'm in a Wallace session or something where I'm doing the sides, like when I'm doing the people in the background or people that aren't main characters, and then I can kind of change it up how I want to. They'll ask me to use my speaking voice, but I can tweak it and kind of make it more of the way I want to.
Now, when you did Kizaru in One Piece, how did you get that gig? And it's weird it's weird talking to you right now and knowing you played him, because I hated him. You're cool, but I hated that motherfucker. Ooh, I hated that motherfucker so much. Because you couldn't kill him. It was like, motherfuckers, they tried to kill him 15 times. I hated him so much.
Right, which is understandable. Because you can't kill him. I've always thought to myself, what would be more interesting? What would be more interesting to me is meeting someone that actually could potentially kill him. And although he has met or I'll say a handful, very, very few, a very small handful of characters that could match him. But kill him, because of it, for anybody who's seen the One Piece movie, I mean, if that China Stone didn't do the trick, then I mean, what will? Now it could have killed him though. It could have killed him, because that was the only time as the voice, that's the only time I've ever seen him afraid, really afraid in a scenario, and that was interesting, because I wanted to see where it was going to go. Like, man, did they actually? I had to ask the director, are they killing him? I mean, what's happening? Yeah, that was a really interesting moment during the movie, which was to me also one of the cooler moments for Kizaru, because he did meet somebody that was that could fight him head on, and he was a match for all intents and purposes, but wasn't powerful enough to kill him, except with that weapon. And to see Kizaru in that kind of fear was really interesting for me.
You know, I went on myanimenetwork.com, and I was reading your profile, and they had a poll saying which like a poll saying, what was your favorite voice for Ray Hurd? And 84% said Kizaru and 14% said Azuma. Do you think that's true as far as your fan base?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've never received fan mail outside of Kizaru, and which I enjoyed. That was really cool, and a lot of people are really big fans of that character, which I had no clue that was the case. He really has a great following. So, and they're all really, really cool people. So, when people find out, like I ran into a couple of guys at the subway one time, and they asked me what I did, and I told them voiceover, and when I told them, they started asking me if I did anime, and we got into it. And once I told them which character I was, they were just like, the whole attitude changed. I mean, I was surprised they didn't start giving me free stuff. It was it was really cool though, because they were just like, oh man, you're this guy, get out of here, But it was, I never would have expected these guys were One Piece fans, and even Kumasi. You got people that have said things to me and really, liked the way I played that character. And his character isn't like nowhere near as big as Kizaru, but there are fans also that just pure One Piece fans that just really like that character also, and liked my voice for that character.
The gift of anime in itself, Japanese animation, if I guess that's the correct term, is the gift of it is it's cool across all borders, across all races. Everybody loves anime. You can go to the hood. I always tell people, you can go to the hood and find Naruto. Naruto was popping in my neighborhood, and
right. It was very popular, yeah.
And I think half of that is because Japanese anime and animation itself masters the art of having a TV show that's not scared to have different characters from different ethnic backgrounds and totally different personalities and function with each other correctly. Like, even for you to have Azuma and Fairy Tail, that's cool. And I hate to hop racially, but it's a black character in a Japanese anime about magic, about European magic with Asian looking characters, white looking characters, and a black character. I can't really think of that many really, really good American cartoons that had characters like that, where you had characters of all different racial backgrounds that all functioned together, and they all had different personalities, different tones of voice. Even when you're playing Azuma in Fairy Tail, you're not trying to talk like a very popular pop. Yes, I'm Azuma, I'm Fairy Tail. You're talking like how you would say stereotypically how we talk. And it's functioning well. It's like no issue with that. I think that's what made Japanese animation really cool in itself. I think their imagination is more limitless.
Right. Yeah, it's that's the cool thing about animation in general. You don't have to. There's no real color line. When it comes down to it, in talking in terms of color, that's not the case. You can be more. It's just all about you facilitating the character. There is since we're talking about that particularly, there is a greater need now. There's a growing market for African American voiceover talent, which there are not many that are doing it. I'm one of the few that I know personally that are actually doing it. Yeah, it's very, very, very few of us that are in the industry doing it. I mean, the most that you will hear about are all actors who have started doing voice acting. So, like they've already built themselves as a brand as an actor. When James Earl Jones, my heroes like James Earl Jones, Keith David, excuse me, even Michael Clark Duncan, when they started doing it, it was going in reverse. They were going, technically, they were going from a big acting brand to becoming a voice personality. So yeah, it was a big deal, or it is a big deal rather. So the request is for more authenticity now than ever before. Even when it comes down to Asian accents, many of the casting directors will request either if they can't find someone that has a really good Asian accent, that they can put on. Excuse me, they'll request an Asian actor. Voice actor to come in and do. Yeah, I mean, so when I first got together with Chris Sabat, the voice of Vegeta and Piccolo in Dragon Ball Z, he
rest in peace, Piccolo.
That was my favorite character, man, next to Goku. So once he as a matter of fact, you said rest in peace. I mean, you kind of throwing me off here. Is there a new series or something? He died that I missed?
No. Remember in GT, he went to hell. He couldn't come back. He went to hell in GT. He couldn't come out because I guess he had died already before, so they couldn't wish him back.
Oh, okay. Well, that's because I stopped after when GT started. I stopped. I am a true Dragon Ball Z fan.
The quality of
GT came out.
GT was terrible. I'm not going to lie to you. We all know this.
I really didn't like GT, and a lot of people did because they were. And I get what they were trying to do. Go back and capture Goku's the popularity they had with Dragon Ball, but that time was over. I mean, Z was what it was. So yeah, they messed up with that one. But yeah. So anyway, it's everything about this world of anime is very, very colorless, so to speak. But they're looking, like I said, nowadays people are looking for more authenticity and not so much just somebody sounding like I did speaking of Chris, I did a video game avatar for him for a popular video game in China, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry. It was a Japanese game. It's actually a Japanese game, and they needed a Japanese accent, and I can do what they tell me. They tell me I do an excellent Japanese accent. So they were like, I always thought it was pretty decent, but they were like, oh yeah. They went through like 100 different guys, and they wanted me to do it. And that's one of the rare times that happened that I know.
Could you do it? Could you do it all right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay. Well, it was I'm trying to think of how he was an avatar, so he didn't really have a name, but everything about what the character had to come across in such a way where there was no question as to what was being talked about. So I took what's his name, the Emperor, well, not the Emperor, but the if you ever seen The Last Samurai, that was like one of my favorite movies. And
I didn't see. I know what you're talking about, but I never saw it.
Oh man, you gotta watch that movie, man. It was so many awesome things about it. That was just the way that they were, man, the way that they did things, and all that was cool. But one of my favorite actors is the man that played Katsumoto, and he was the leader of the samurai, and he was in the Godzilla movie too, and he's done a lot of different work, Inception and all, and just the way that he pronounces his words, it just drives me crazy. I love it. It's just I just love the way he comes across, man. He has a lot of presence, and his voice is strong, and that accent is strong. So anyway, that was my interpretation of him when I did it, and they loved my accent and thought it was really cool.
Now, is it natural?
They couldn't tell it was a black guy doing it.
Is it natural if you can mimic those accents, or do you have to kind of take like a few minutes to kind of figure out what you're doing?
Well, I think I've been doing it so long. Coming from a musical family, I've always had a good ear for tones. So I know how to. It's kind of a instinctual thing. Like, I don't really think too much about it. I just hear it and then I apply it. It comes pretty easy. So I guess you could say it's natural for me. A lot of people ask about it, and I'm just like, well, man, I don't think too much about it. I just, once I heard it, I mimic it. Like I used to do with the kids in class when I was in school. If I thought if they were trying to clown me, so to speak, and say something crazy about me, in turn, I would mimic their voice and tell them how they sound. But I would do it in a more, dumb way. So everybody would be like, you sound like that guy, but you just made him sound really ridiculous, and they would just crack.
It's funny, like, well, damn, Eric, maybe you do sound retarded. Hell, he's sick. He make it unbelievable.
Right. Right. It was in my back in my radio school. There was a guy that he just happened to sound a lot like the movie phone announcer. And for anyone that's old enough to remember the movie phone, it was basically, that was state-of-the-art technology. You could call, and it would tell you what movies were playing at that movie theater that you were requesting. So at that time, that was
damn.
So now, that was before the internet was as popular as it is now. It was nowhere near as popular as it is now. And as a matter of fact, Androids weren't even out yet. So it was a while back. So you would call, and movie phone would come on, and he said, "Hello, this is your AOL movie phone announcer calling to provide the convenient access the AOL movie phone provides and giving you the movies you want when you want them." And so I'm going through the whole thing doing the movie phone voice, and they just figured out, took this other guy's voice and was just trying to make a real joke of it and made it into a commercial. And so the guy was looking at me like, "Really, man? You just fronted me out in front of everybody like that? It really embarrassed me." And and the whole class just cracked up, and it was no offense. I didn't even think about it. I was trying to do movie phone, So I did it. Everybody heard it, and they just started clapping. They gave me a standing ovation. They were like, "Man, you captured him perfectly, man." I was like, "I'm doing movie phone," and so they got it, but they didn't realize how much he sounded like the movie phone until I did the commercial. So anyway, that was a really, really funny moment in the class. Yeah, it was crazy.
I asked that because have you ever seen Saturday Night Live? Well, of course you've seen that.
Yeah. Just more or less which version, which generation?
The worst one, which is on right now.
With Kanan and those guys. Yeah, I've seen it, but I don't really watch it much. My favorite was way back when the Eddie Murphy, Joe Piscopo, and then of course it came back to be funny again with some of the other guys that had come through, and which a lot of people don't know. Kevin Hart was a part of the Saturday Night Live for a little while.
Bless their heart. They trying. But I asked that because there's this one guy on there who does impressions. His name is Jay Farrell, and they had asked him how he does impressions, and he says what he does is he has to take the time to figure out what an impression is. And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, like, for example, there was this guy, I want to say it was Al Pacino or somebody. He said it was either Al Pacino or Robert De Niro, and he said, I dissect the accent. Like he said, Robert De Niro is Jay-Z slowed down, but with a Southern accent. I was like, like what? He said, so then he started talking like Jay-Z.
That's how you right. Yeah.
So it's interesting.
That's how you rationalize it in his head. I get you.
That's cool. So if you could create your own character who you think would represent you in anime, like your own anime character, who do you think it would be? Like a combination of what two characters?
Well, in order for it to work in anime, it's got to be a little, probably drawing on more of the meaner side. In my opinion, well, because they usually I'm cast for the big bosses and the Dr. Claw types, and for anybody who's a fan of Inspector Gadget, and things like that. So, and I know I'm like really dating myself right now as I'm saying these things, but that's if I were to put two together, I'll pick from what I've already done. And I know I talked about Basilisk earlier when you asked me about interesting characters, but I really enjoyed doing KK also from Dimension W. And mixing KK.
That one I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with that one. What's the name again?
Dimension W. That's what it's called. It was coming on it was on the Cartoon Network. It used to come on, well, it's been running here. This past season is over. The season's over now, but in the first 7 episodes, on episode 7, my character comes in 7 through 10. His name is KK, but it came on the Adult Swim at 11:30 on Cartoon Network Central Standard Time. So, and I think 12 Eastern. But it was really it was a pretty cool character. He looked like, I'll tell you what, he looks like Will Smith and dresses like Neo from The Matrix from Part 2.
Oh, okay, that's why you like him. Okay. Oh, okay.
And so, and it was a chance for me to. That was one of the coolest characters I'd ever played, next to Azuma, and just the way he came across. He was a sinister guy, man. He was really pretty treacherous, pretty terrible guy, but because he was a reanimator, he could reanimate people who died, and he wasn't a big fighter as much as he was getting reanimating people and getting them to fight for him. But he could fight, and I liked his overall character and way of approaching things. He another slightly stoic character, but if I were to put him together with Azuma, I think that would be, to answer your question, I think that would be probably a pretty good depiction of how I would want my anime avatar, or whatever you want to call it, to be. So yeah, with a hint of Goku in there.
Well, I mean, everybody loves Goku.
Yeah, his heart, man. He's just. But it's funny. The characters that they ask me to play are generally the characters I always liked while watching anime, because Piccolo was pretty much like, if I had to play a character, Piccolo would be the one I wanted to play. If I had to I used to imitate before Chris took over, Chris Sabat, the original voice when it aired in America. I used to imitate his voice all the time. His, Vegeta's, all of those guys. So, when he came in, especially in the, what's the name of that movie? They fought the little guy that would grow really big, and he had big muscles, and they had to fight him. It was
Frieza.
No. He was a green. He looked like he was from Namek almost, but he came back in GT.
I know
he's the guy that shrunk Goku in GT.
I know you're talking about what's his name?
Right, but you know what I mean, and yeah, he was the way when Piccolo talked to him, because he thought he killed Piccolo, and he came back, and just that scene was was
Yeah.
garlic joint. And it's funny because I'm looking at, well, no, I'm looking at another one. This is Cooler Infusion Return. But he tells Garlic something in reference to him not being able to use his abilities because he was going to jack him up so bad. And so he's like, Garlic. And he tells him, the guy he puts it, he says, imagine having all those powers and not being able to use them. You know, and the way he said it, man, it was just, it was a powerful scene for me, man. And I was like, oh man, because I thought Piccolo was dead, you know, and he comes back and he and Goku hated each other at this time. They started fighting together, and that was just really cool.
Yeah, Piccolo was a boss, man. Everybody loved Piccolo. I hate that he died. I mean, personally, my favorite wasn't Piccolo. My favorite really in Dragon Ball Z, I mean, it kind of varied depending on who was winning at the time. For a long time, Gohan was my favorite. Then he went through that phase where he lost his power. He didn't work out for 7 years. And when he was a kid, I loved him. When he became a teenager, I hated him because he just sucked after that.
Yeah.
Really, you know what? Really, and this is weird because your voice could kind of be him. In a lot of ways, I never realized how much I liked Vegeta until I started going back and watching it afterwards.
Oh yeah, man, Vegeta was the man. I when they in the Saiyan duel, when he first came to Earth, I loved Vegeta. I loved the way when I fell in love. You know how you're introduced to something for the first time, and then you get another version of it afterwards, and it's like, you know, it takes time to grow on you. That's how it was when Funimation had taken over. I was like, man, I had to really get used to it, and I started, you know, I fell in love with it all over again because Chris does an amazing job as Vegeta. I mean, it fit to me. He fit Vegeta when he started going good, when he started working together with Goku. The other person, whose name I cannot remember, who did the voice initially, he just seemed to be a really great bad Vegeta. You know, when he said, even the way he said Kakarot, you know, he just had this way of, you know, he's like he despised him. You know, he's just like, that is your name, and this, you know, without that Goku stuff is crap. I don't want to hear that, you know.
Right,
you were Kakarot, and you were a low-level fan.
You said that like he was in Roots. Your name is Kakarot. Your name is Kakarot.
Right.
Oh, it's Goku.
Right, you know.
Toby.
Right, and he's like, you know, even when Goku had shot him up, you know, when they had that big blast, that moment where they blast each other, and, you know, he flies with, you know, Goku's beam eventually beats him with the Kaioken ×4, and when he comes back and he's like, I'll have to transform to defeat him, you know, and he comes back to Earth.
That is the best.
He's like, dodge this next attack if you can, but even if I miss you, this whole planet's going up in smoke. You know, I was just...
that was the best.
Moments, man, were just...
That was the best, man. But actually, I hate to cut you off, but we're actually on our last 55 seconds of the interview because our software is short. But I want you to tell people, where can they find you at online?
You can follow my Facebook. If you were to go to my website is rayhurd.com, www.rayhurd.com. That takes you to my demos, and then from there you can attach yourself to my Facebook page. And I'm thinking about, I've considered making it available to people, for people to write on. As of right now, it's like, you know, you can only type in if you're, or respond to anything if you respond to something that I've sent out already. So you heard it 31. And also Ray Hurd.
Okay. So people, you heard that. You can find him at rayhurd.com, RAHURRD.com.